Greetings everyone. Today marks the fourth day of the speaker series March Marathon organized by Student Government. For today's event, Student Government has invited Mr. Driton Hapciu to discuss in the IT field. Mr. Hapciu will be presenting, and in the end he will be opened for a Q&A session. So please welcome Mr. Hapciu.
Thank you, Adriana. First of all, thank you for inviting me and being here. This is not my first time delivering speeches at universities. I think it's very important for industry to get to know academia and vice versa, because you are the future entrepreneurs, you are the future colleagues of mine, and it is important that you get to know more about industry, more about reality from people who face that either being successful or not so successful. Today I will be very brief. I'll try just to give you a couple of experiences that I have faced during my career, and I hope that after that we will have a session of more of a discussion type of thing rather than Q&A. So my name is Driton Hapciu, and today I will be talking about failure. Partially, the tough word actually means failure. But before that, I would rather give you a brief about what I've done so far. I've been working with and for many companies. I've been in the first days of many startups that are today, let's say, successful companies. My first couple of endeavors were actually private companies, which I founded together with friends, family, or people that I knew from before. From 1991 to 2006, I've been in many companies that started then together with other friends like Koha, which you are most probably aware today, which was then Koha, not so big as it is now as a group. I also worked for international organizations, partially, but I usually had two lives. So one was business, one was making money, one was surviving, and the second one used to be something in the social field, rather than not so paid or paid at all. Voluntary work, working for different organizations, founding organizations as well. Such as, I ran a Karl Popper debate program in early 90s with some of your professors today, some of the mayors of municipalities, vice ministers today, some people who made it quite far. I also worked with an organization called Post Pessimist. I was the first coordinator long time ago, working with Norwegian government, but also in my field, in ICT. So with Kosovo Association of ICT companies, I'm one of the founders. Innovation Center of Kosovo is my little baby, which was also funded by Norwegian government and other donors. I sit on the board of STIC today. I sit on the board of ICK as well. I am one of the mentors in iVenture, which is a private accelerator venture program in Kosovo, founded by and funded by a wealthy entrepreneur who sold his company in Switzerland to ABB. And I also, from time to time, mentor for SEED, which is also one of the, let's say, entrepreneurship programs in the country. Today, my two big and lovely companies are Cacttus, which is an information and technology communication company. We are more than 60 in the company. And the other one is Recura Financial, which is a financial advisory company, mainly deals with merger and acquisitions, financial diligence, valuation. We are doing some minor asset management and helping companies prepare business and investment plans for future investments. We work with European Bank for Reconstruction, with International Finance Corporation. They are our clients, but they are also our partners. And there are some other companies like new ones, Halicia, software testing company, Kosovo, news agency, rebranded, Concepticon is a business consultancy, and Peshkuyar. I am not alone in all of those. I usually work with other people, so I have a certain percentage. Sometimes I invest money, sometimes I invest knowledge, so it's a different model from time to time. So, I'm here today to talk about something that is becoming a very common spread word around, which is failure. But maybe not in a sense that people today usually use it, because it's become very, not only famous, but to say so, it's sort of becoming fetish, and I'll talk about it a bit later. So we are all faced with failure every day, in our everyday lives, in our everyday business, and it's a common thing. And if we relate to business, more than 2/3 or even more than 80% of the businesses that start up at some point of time, they fail completely. While during their everyday work, they fail many times, or most of the times. So, the thing is that in our society, we were used and taught not to fail. We were taught to be successful all the time, and every time that even you as students sometimes fail on your exams, hopefully not, when you go home, your parents start nagging you, bragging about why you could have done that, etc., etc. But the thing is that they happen. We should embrace them. We should learn from them. We should actually understand the failure and try to make those failures smaller, not as big as they can become sometimes. On the other hand, it sucks. So failure is not a nice word. It's not a funny word. It's not something that you can say that, yeah, it was nice, I failed. I heard a couple of months ago during a presentation in Innovation Center, I'm not sure, was it a startup weekend or something like that, and a guy had a presentation and he started talking about failure like the most beautiful thing in the world. And I really hate that kind of perception and accepting failure as something that is cool, something that is, yeah, because it happens in Silicon Valley, it should happen here, and we should be proud of that. The thing is that we should acknowledge failure, but we should not be proud of that, and nobody is proud of that, not even in Silicon Valley. It's not that people will get to know you better or start working with you because you had 157 failures. I think people will actually avoid you for that. It's more of a thing that you have learned from the failures that you've been through that are important, rather than being a failure in general. So, I said it before, there are so many failures, and they are statistically proven, but there are also so many successes, and we usually hear about successes and not the failures. So today I want to talk about some of the ways to avoid those failures. And as I said earlier, it's not fetish, even it's not nice even where it was invented in technology. Because they say in Silicon Valley you are not successful unless you have failed a couple of times, which is true, most probably, because people have tried doing something and they failed, and then suddenly came to a point that they had a success. They learned from their failure, so fine. But even there, it's not regarded as something that is good to happen. So, I think we need to learn some of the lessons before we try to fly. And we need to learn them while we are sitting on the ground, being really secure and set for it, and understand what are the important things. Now, you will hear many important things in order not to fail, but I will give a couple of them, maybe some of them that were important for me. So the first one is that you will most probably, or you won't do it right the first time. Whatever you do your first company, you do your first product, you do your first service, don't be afraid of it. You won't do it the right way. You will learn about it during your studies, you will learn about it during your education, but when it comes to reality, you will most probably face so many problems that the thing that you will do will not be as right as you would wish to do it or your customer would wish to have it. So you will try to be perfect, but most probably it won't be the right thing from the very start. Chances are that you will not be alone in what you are offering, in what you are doing. So there are so many inventions in this world, but they are rare and they are few actually. So it's most probably that you won't be the first one to do what you are doing. So somebody has done it before. And if you can learn from what they have done before and try to make it better, that would be a good case to do it. And unless there is a real differentiation in the market for what you are doing, and there is a unique value proposition, you're definitely not the first one to do it. So this is something that you need to start with. The other F word is former. So usually entrepreneurs don't start creating companies and creating new ventures from the very beginning. They start working somewhere, and I would really encourage you to start working before creating your first company. I'm not saying that because of the idea of stealing somebody else's whatever idea in the company, but rather that you will have a learning experience in the other company. But it's also very much true that there's, again, statistical data that most of the ideas in creating new things, new products, new services, come from former employees in the former companies. So this is, again, I'm not saying that you should steal things from the others, but rather you will learn many things, and while discussing with people, having coffee, getting out for a pizza or whatever, you will come to an idea if you want to create something on your own from somebody who is your former employee or employer. Feedback is also another F word, which is very important. In most of the cases, one of the reasons why new companies fail is not listening to the customers. Because entrepreneurs are dreamers and they dream about their products. They want to create something that is very unique, very special, but they think in their own setup. As somebody says, they cave in, or they get into their mining companies, they close themselves and do whatever they want to do, create that product because it is the smartest thing in the world, and then go to the market and the market says, sorry, I don't need this. This is foolish, this is too complicated, this is blah blah, etc. So feedback is very important when you start doing things. Feedback comes from the market. Feedback comes from your potential customers. You need to understand, to listen, to care about what they say. They are kings, their cash is king. So be aware of that fact and try to listen to that and get that feedback into your products and services. you need money. There is no such thing as creating a product or a service without funds. So you will be needing funding. It's either your money, your friends' money, your family money, some fools, as we say, money, somebody you have chosen to fool in terms of investing into your dream. But also there are angel funds, venture capital funds, even bank funds, although they are not so common here, which will actually fund your dream and what you want to create as a product or as a service. Now, that money is not forever. It will not last forever. It's usually, if it saves your money, it's 3 to 6 months, maybe 1 year max. In our country, maybe in Silicon Valley, a bit longer. And if it's venture capital money, then it's much bigger. But again, that money is very important for your company, so don't try to use it for buying Porsches or something like that, because then you will get stuck. Care about that money as it was your money. So as it was your personal money investing into the company. As long as you do that, it will last longer. So instead of lasting only a couple of months, it can last more. Nowadays I'm investing. I usually had investors before. Now I invest in other companies, and I really tend not to work with people who think about that money as somebody else's money. So that's the reason maybe I only have chosen a couple of startups recently to work. Focus. When we create products and services, we tend to think that the more general we are, the more broader we are, then the bigger the market is, the bigger the audience is. Well, that's not true. That might be true in terms of the audience, but that might be true that they need particularly that kind of product. We today choose products that are focused, that are specific in its sense. Recently, a guy, I just came from Germany yesterday, this CeBIT fair, which is the largest European ICT fair, which is going down, by the way, so it's not worth it anymore even to go there. But I've seen so many social networking products there that it's crazy. They tend now to be products that gather all sort of things that we have separated today. So there was one product that had Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter in it, and they thought that it was cool. The thing is that the market sometimes doesn't need all those things in one place. I mean, you cannot imagine having a washing machine and a dish machine in one. It wouldn't work. So there are things that you really need to separate, to be focused in creating, to target with that product a specific market, and that way you can move and build up your product base. We need to be concise and be simple. I mean, in '99, Google came out with a product, and it was a search engine. And that search engine and that Google look, that user interface is 95% the same as it was in '99. They haven't changed much of it except for the Google thing in the middle, which changes from time to time, but the rest is there. There is +1 square thing there with added products on it, but it's simple and concise as it used to be. So you have to think of your products and services as well. When you sell something to somebody, you need to be very precise, very concise, focused, and simple. That's the best way to sell your story, whatever it is. and be compelling. Absolutely, you have to persuade the customers to buy it. Customers are afraid usually from the products that they don't know, from the services that they haven't heard much about, that they haven't seen, and that they haven't seen somebody else buying the product. How many times you've seen yourself going through hypermarket or supermarket, wherever, and when you see somebody buying something else, you just grab the same thing behind you. Because it's a trust that you gain, and the thing that there is this fear thing that you try to eliminate while buying things that other people have bought or somebody has made you buy. Another effort are founders, and it is something that I've done a lot. I told you that most of my companies, or all of my companies after '94, are actually companies that I've done together with the others. Products or services are something that I created with other people. I was not alone. I was trying to find other people who have skills, money, friends, networks that are valuable to me. So I had something, they had other things, we got together and we created companies. It is very important that you choose the right founders if you do that together with someone. Because they need to be cool, not in terms of being cool, but rather you need to have this chemistry, as we call it, between. So maybe you need to have some similarities, like the same beer, movies, sports, or something like that. Because if the founders are not intertwined, if they don't talk to each other the right way, then it can become a problem. And especially it becomes a problem when the product and service is about to go out to the market, and especially when the money comes flowing in. Then you are in trouble with people unless you have this chemistry solved before. And when you fight for the ideas between the founders, you need to find people with whom you can do that, with whom you can communicate that. And you need to find founders that are not fearful of that thing, that you are successful or more elaborate, or you know things that they don't know, but rather people who find those differences important for the company and the products to move on. I also think that you need to find a product that fits. There are so many products on the market, there are so many shoes, but you buy only shoes that fit to your persona, that fit to your makeup, that fit to the way that you dress, the way that you feel. And also the products and the services and the company and even the name needs to fit to the market. I met a friend of mine who named her son Tristan a couple of days ago, and she was like, I did this because I love it. Tristan is not an Albanian, a common Albanian name. It's not common at all, actually. It's not even Albanian. So, and I asked her, why did you do it? And she said, well, you know, this movie, I said, it's the history, then it's the movie, etc. I said, well, I like it. Okay, it fits with my general idea of how I would like to call my son and my daughter, and it will fit because they don't live in Pristina, they don't live in Kosovo, so they live abroad. And she said, it will fit where I live. I said, fine, that's great. You sell that story and you move on. So you need to find a way to how to fit your business model, your business, your product, your service into the environment. We usually say that the business fails if you don't hit the right target at the right time with the right product. So you need, sometimes you are before the time, sometimes you lack that, you are behind. So it's very important that you fit whatever you do into the context. maybe you should be a bit futuristic, maybe 2 to 3 years with what you are doing. So when the time comes, you fit that into the setup. For the end, I just, again, briefly want to talk about that failure thing in order for people to understand how it really relates to our everyday life. I'm not saying it's good, but in Spielberg case, it was excellent, and for us it was very beneficial, because if that didn't happen, he would most probably be some nerdy guy somewhere there. And there are so many cases of things trying to do things the right way, and they didn't work out. So don't be afraid of it. Try to learn from what you try to do and fail, and things will work out. If you work hard, absolutely things will work hard. This will be my last slide, and these are my contacts, these are the websites. I will most probably replicate or triple those in a couple of years. There are also some things that didn't work out on the first slide, and I've overcome them. So it's something that I tried. In some of them I have been fooled. In some of them I just failed, it didn't work. But the rest is working excellent, so I'm happy with it. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Driton. If anyone has any question, please raise your hand. Okay, Apias.
My name is Arbiaz. I'm a junior here at A.U.K. I wanted to ask you about the idea of a business in the IT sector, as you are familiar with that. If there is a market where there are a lot of competitors, let's say web developing companies, would it be a good assessment if, let's say for the future, I would have an idea to enter the business, but before entering the business, assessing that what you said, that offering a product that currently doesn't exist. Is it a really risky thing to do? Or if it thought well, would it have success here in Kosovo? So, thinking that the IT sector here in Kosovo is flourishing later.
Okay, so there are many ways of thinking about that. First of all, startup in IT is very easy to do compared to mining industry or health industry, when you have to employ 50 doctors or get 200 people into mining complex, and it's not so costly. So that is the reason why there is so much entrepreneurship in IT. There is so much funding in IT. There are so many Silicon Valleys in the world in IT. That is the first reason. And there is also this notion that there is more and more IT in our everyday lives, whatever way you think of it. So it's become a necessity, and people try to react to that demand side with supply. That is the first thing. The second thing is that there are two streams. There is one stream which is startup entrepreneurship, classic. You come up with an idea, you find a place to develop that idea into a product or a service. You try that with incubators, with small places like cool maker spaces, whatever, or even garage thing. And then you come up with that, and then somebody comes up, or you find enough money to invest into it and move on. The other way around is with how VCs and serious investors do. So they ask you or get into feasibility studies. Will this work? Will it happen? Is there enough money to do that in 2 years' time? Is there enough market? What is the ratio? Can we get some money out of it? Etc. etc. This second way of doing it is not such an easy way of doing it, and it's costly, and it's usually not working. So it works with established companies, established products. When you want to expand geographically, expand your portfolio, your service, that's the other way around. But in the beginning, it doesn't work. Now, the third thing is the market. I really wouldn't believe that Kosovo and Albanian-speaking market is the market for products and services in IT so much, because it's small. We are 2 million here, and a couple of million in Albania, and a couple of million in Macedonia, and a couple of hundreds in Montenegro, and diaspora, so total 7, 8, I don't know. Let's make it 10 million even. You go to a small Chinese village, and it has more than 10 million. So if there is a product that can fit the market, which is more global, which is more open to that kind of product and service, I think that would be a wise thing to do. Is it good? Yes, I think IT is generally a very good thing to go into as a startup and as an entrepreneur.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. My name is Auditorium. In the very first, you mentioned Silicon Valley, and I wanted to know if you ever have been part of the Silicon Valley in San Francisco and Central Park during your entire career until now, and what was your experience?
I've been there for a study program for 4 weeks. I visited everybody in tech industry except Apple, because the program was actually financed by US government, and Apple refused to host us. So I've been into Facebook, into same office where Zuckerberg is. I've been to Google, to Intel, to Microsoft. We went also to Seattle, Amazon and Microsoft, Bill Gates Foundation. And I also visited everybody. Most of the key players in the funding area. So from small angels, really small angels, up to $3,000, to Horowitz and Anderson and Morgan Stanley and whoever you can think of in the VC and big time investment companies. I also met lots of entrepreneurs in different setups, starting from TechCrunch to incubators, accelerators, innovation centers, plug-and-play centers, garage settings. So in 4 weeks, it was less sleep than I could ever had in my life. The one problem was that it was too late for me. I should have been there when I was 18, when I was maybe your age or less. So I was a bit late for being in the Silicon Valley, having a family, 2 kids, a wife back home, and all those companies here, because you cannot be at 2 settings at the same time. I think that it shouldn't be in your bucket list. It should be on your now list. It shouldn't be something that you will do later in your life. If you want to work in IT, you find your ticket, find your cousins in America or wherever, get your ticket and go there. Go be there even for fun. Go to Napa Valley, have lots of wine, go back to whatever bridge is there, and etc., but do the thing now. Do it now when you're young, when you can meet people, when you can find maybe your love of technology, startup, or other love, whatever, and do it now, because that's the place to be. There are lots of other places as well. But none of them, and I've been to many, none of them is like that environment. It's very open, strangely for America. I love America, but it is different setup from New York, from Iowa, from, I mean, that California and that specific California in Silicon Valley is completely different setup from everything I've seen. I think it's worth it. And you'll see more open people to what you have to tell them than anywhere in the world.
Hello, my name is Raja Aliti. I'm a junior student at A.U.K. and I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, if there was a project to send 10 young IT students from Kosovo to the Silicon Valley, would you be willing to support them or support a part of it? And the second one is, what do you think about outsourcing in Kosovo or starting an outsourcing company that would bring investors from, like, consumers from outside of Kosovo and send the products back? Thank you.
So the first one, I told you that I sit on the board of STIC, which is the Kosovo Association of ICT Companies, and on the board of Innovation Center of Kosovo. What I'm trying right now is, together with Swiss government and Norwegian government, to set up Silicon Valley in 3 months program, which would be designed for young startups who have a certain idea which we believe, and when I say we, there are a bunch of people who would go through the process of selecting and funding a 3-month program to bring those startups to Silicon Valley, to incubators, specifically to Plug and Play. Plug and Play is one of the biggest incubators in the Silicon Valley. It has multiple locations. There is one in Palo Alto and another one in Redwood and another one. So there are a couple of places where they are located. The program is not so expensive, and we are trying just to build awareness and get some funding for it. And hopefully, if that works, then we will most probably announce that and start selecting companies to do it. If there will be some sort of a visiting program, I'm not sure. Visiting program needs to be designed really specifically, because it needs to justify why 10 students would go there specifically, but also it needs to justify whoever invests into that program. But if I would be somebody who is capable of doing that, I would absolutely do it. It's worth it for a student. But as I said previously, don't count on that too much. Do it on your own. I'll try to work out through summer and get maybe some money and buy a ticket and go there. For the second question, it is a very complicated question. One of my new startups, Harisia, is software testing company purely designed and created to serve the markets abroad. So it's specifically German-speaking market and Norwegian, Scandinavian. So it's we are having our hard times, because going out and talking to a German or a Norwegian, the first thing that it comes to their mind when you say I'm from Kosovo is not IT. Is everything else but IT. They know more about Lazarat than about IT in Kosovo. So it's, although Lazarat is not in Kosovo anyway. So it's a very complicated story, trying to persuade somebody that you have the capability, you are capable of doing things that, like Indians are doing. Now they are fed up with Indians in terms of service that they get, in terms of people changing their jobs so often. India has become also expensive. If you want a good service in India and you can get it, it's expensive. Now it's not anymore cheap as it was. what you will get for cheap is actually lousy service. That is the first problem. Europe is also fed with Ukraine and Belarus because they mostly speak Russian or Ukrainian or other languages, and their English is less appealing as our English is here. Not that I mean that our English is superb, but we rather speak good English, so they want that, or German. But changing that view, that first look on Kosovo from that perspective is very hard, and also the volume. We have a problem with numbers. We are very few. I have only 15 testers in my team. I was last year in Allianz, which is the biggest insurance company. I think it's the first or the second in the world, I'm not sure, in Munich. They have hired Accenture, which is number one ICT company after IBM, for providing testing services. And Accenture has 40,000 testers in India and Bangladesh. And if I go there and say I will provide you with a service with it, give me 40,000 of something in Kosovo. I don't know, even in public service there are not so many employees. So we have also a problem with numbers. But it is possible. There are companies working from Kosovo. We have 2 clients in Germany, small ones. There are companies working in 3D modeling, web design, template design, some basic outsourcing in software development. So it is possible, but it will take time. It will definitely take time.
Hello, my name is Visarya Sisha, I'm the director for TDI. You talked about the feedback and also about being to be compelling. And I remember I read many years ago about when they asked Henry Ford about market research, and they asked him to do market research to build the car, and he said if I ask people what they need, they would say faster horses. So there's always some degree of, in any innovation or product, there is also some degree that the person who starts with the idea of the product has much to say also about the observation that he made about the specific need. Not that it actually comes articulated from the market, that the market says, this is what I need, and then you come as a response to that articulated need. So how much would you say is this degree of basically being a good observer in sense of identifying without actually having the words coming out of the market, but identifying the needs on your own as a company to come with something that you basically shove them, to their throat, like Apple.
Yeah, the question is right as usual. The one way of answering is I had an Apple-like product 2 years before Apple went out with it. It was called E-Team, E-T-E-M. It was a Korean product with a touch screen, with Wi-Fi, with Bluetooth, with SD card, with pen, with battery which lasted quite long, with apps. It was based on Microsoft technology, but it was twice as thick as Apple. It was lousy in its look, and there was no marketing for it. Absolutely, nobody cared to sell that. I bought it on eBay, I think, or something like that. I'm not sure. And it was. This is before Apple One, iPhone 1. So the market was there. Most probably both of the sides took that to their knowledge. But one of them, who was, because he died, was a bit strange person and personality. He had his mind blown off, most probably in his childhood. The guy just wanted to do it the way that he wanted to do it. And making a comparison with Ford, maybe, I think you mentioned Ford, right? In that sense, is that Ford actually invented a car as we have it today, in that sense. Jobs didn't invent anything. He just went for the things that were on the market. I had an iPod before iPod was there. It was not called iPod, it was some foolish, I don't know, Sony or something device, which didn't look nice. It had a couple of things on it you could switch on. So, I think even Jobs listened to a market a lot. Maybe he didn't, he just didn't told us about it so much in his biography and during his talks about it, but I think he was listening to it very much, because the key person in his team was actually an industrial designer who, for many reasons, listens to the market. How market wants to swipe things, how wants to, and they tried. And it's a trial and error thing. And if you read the book, the Isaacson book about Jobs, the biography actually, when he presented to the board iPhones or iPads, I think, there were 12 of them on the table. So he was testing the market from the board perspective, and the boards are usually people with experience. He had Disney CEO on the board, as well as many other people who had more than 30, 40 years of experience in different areas, specifically business. So he presented 12 of them as products and asked them, what do you think about this? Which one do you think would be a good one? And in this industrial designer complex within Apple, actually he had people who would walk through, specific people, and he would just ask them for an opinion. So maybe it's not specifically market survey as we know it. We go out and we try, we have a sample of 1,000 people and we do it like that. No, you don't do it like that. But specifically you meet people, maybe you have a lunch with somebody and dinner, or showing a product or a service, or questioning, would you like to have this, would you like to have that, etc., etc. I think that's the way to do it in the beginning. Later on, Apple, maybe we are not faced so much with surveys from Apple, but actually Apple gathers so much data about how we use the product, then it generates new products for us. We use it, he understands that the screen is smaller, he gets a bigger screen, that the thing doesn't work with Wi-Fi, it has this and that, so they change it, they bring some updates, next time we have a new product. So yes, they sell us a story big time, absolutely, and there are many companies that do that all the time. But again, I think they really know what they are creating.
Well, thank you first for your amazing presentation. Here I got some questions, a couple of questions. Actually, you mentioned in one of your slides, you said that when you are creating your startup, you said most of the ideas might come from your previous employer. You said this is not about stealing ideas. When I speak to entrepreneurs here in Kosovo, one of the reasons why they hesitate to do a new startup or to go for a new, let's say, opportunity in creating a startup, they say that immediately somebody is going to steal your idea and it's going to become your competitor. So when you think about Kosovo in terms of other countries, is there any much more difficulties in here because of this phenomenon that stealing ideas is much easier than, let's say, in Western nations? So what do you say about that? How to tackle that? The second question is, you mentioned just briefly the social media in your presentation. And as you know, in the Web 2.0, there is a high traffic around social media. And nowadays, even in all the fields in life, including politics and health and all other fields, digital marketing, there is an ever-increasing use of social media. And it's becoming like another huge opportunity for marketers and for everybody. So how do you see the role of social media unfolding in Kosovo? How is this going to impact the existing trends in business here in Kosovo? And here also, how do you explain phenomena like next Friday, here we are hosting an amical workshop. It's an international amical workshop where we will present how do we engage students in creating multimedia content. And one of the things that we did here was to create content for Kosovo cities to include pictures and text. And just to let you know, for example, Brezovica, we have, for this site, we have already 5,000 visitors that visit this site. How do you see the role of social media and the absence of these kinds of web content that seems so fundamental to Kosovo? Why do we have that and how to tackle that? And the third question is about outsourcing. We hear a lot about outsourcing here, and not only the field of IT, I have heard also about outsourcing in the field of agriculture. For example, land which is not being worked by people in this country could be worked by people from out of the country. How do you see outsourcing opportunities in IT, and how is this going to unfold in the future? So to resume, first question about stealing ideas, second question about social media, and third question about outsourcing. Thanks.
Jobs stole Wozniak as a person and his idea of creating a product which he had actually there in his home. So Zuckerberg stole it. Whether we like it or not, he actually stole it from people with whom he worked as well. So it's stealing in that sense that you steal an idea is something that, unless there is an invention going on, I think is not something that we should be afraid of. I think there are inventions which are problematic, and we don't have still an environment for inventions here. We have to be sincere with that. We don't have an environment even which was 150 years ago in US, when Tesla or I don't know who else was having his inventions in US. So there are legal implications, there are legal setups, there are patent pending things, but I think rather it's more of a fear than actual thing. If you hear somebody talking about something and you get that idea and put it into work and make out a product out of that, I think that if I was in that case, I would most probably ask that person to work together, because he has an idea and I would bring him some value to it. But otherwise I don't see that as a big problem, and I think people should not be fearful in that sense. It should be more open If there is an invention going on, buy a ticket, sell your house, get your parents up to here in credits, and move on outside and find a better place to think about it. So it's easy. Patents, by the way, are a long process, at least 2 years, at least $200,000 if you get a good lawyer and cheap lawyer for that. So it's not an easy thing to do, if there is an invention going on. Otherwise, I don't mind in that sense. I don't mind. One of my former students, then employees, today has a company and he offers services similar to an idea that I had before. I don't mind. It's not an issue for me. I think if he's successful, he's successful not because of an idea, but because he's persistent and he works on it. Second, about social media, it's become a huge problem. I say problem, it's an opportunity, but it's also a problem. It's a problem because it has come into our bedrooms. Kitchen was long forgotten, it's now in the bedroom even. So it's like everybody has some sort of social media with him all day long. It's an issue. On the sales side, I know many people who sell lots of things on social media. There is a young lady who sells jewelry in center of Pristina. She has no shop. She has no business registration number. I presume she doesn't pay taxes as well, which used to be common. I'm not sure how common it is now, and she sells them on Facebook. And she does it extremely well. And she sells it through her friends. And that's becoming a problem. That's an issue for the normal setup. And it's an issue also for the buyers. Because I'm an old user of Amazon and eBay. I buy things from eBay and Amazon. But it's a sales point. It's not Facebook. It's not social media. Here I'm targeted intentionally for a product to be bought. So it's becoming an issue, which means that there is so much data in it that can be used. If it's channeled properly, that's an extremely important channel to use. You can sell everything, and you can buy everything through Facebook, and you can also influence lots of them for social media. Now I'm mentioning Facebook because it's easier to do it than via Twitter, for instance, or Instagram, but it's becoming a very important part of our everyday lives, also in buying and selling. For the outsourcing part, I said it before, I think it's very important that we understand and realize that this is a small market. And if we want to have a success, a big success, then we have to go out of our borders. Geographical, mental, cultural borders, everything. You want to make a success out of it, you have to go out beyond that. Now that requires lots of resources, lots of energy, lots of money as well, but I think that's the best way to do it. Now, in comparing that to agriculture, I think it's a bit problematic because nobody wants agro anymore in their mindset. Agro is something for cool guys today to buy a piece of land and grow some fruits or something like that and become successful, which will be a very hard thing to do. But the others who have tried it, who have been taught about agro and about land and about how to make that thing are today in Pristina, most of them. So people have just run out of agro thing. And honestly, I don't see agro as an outsourcing destination. These kind of services which are more social, more service level, more IT, more social media stuff, are things that we can work on. And you most probably know there are more than 40 call centers in Pristina. call centers, 40. More than, I think there are 6,000 employees in the call center arena in Kosovo working for, I don't know, Germany, Switzerland. Some of them on lousy call center styles, but there are also very high profile techie things that our tech support centers offer here. So there is a wide arena, and social media could be one of those. Actually, one of the companies we are trying to create has to do with that.
Seeing that our time has passed, thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. So we hope to further cooperation.
Thank you.